Yeah, so target breach happened in 2013, but you can see it's not about target. Every year we see lots of data breaches, and you can see almost all companies are here, from Amazon to LinkedIn to Facebook. I mean, the day to day, whatever applications we are using, they all have encountered somehow data breaches. And in many cases, you might also see, like, people often save their credit card, yeah, passwords, credit card informations there. So this actually takes us to the notion, like, how much important it is to manage security, because as we are moving towards more digitalization, the impact will be more higher. Yeah, go ahead, Ajish.
One silly question, I'm sorry, but when you were talking about data breach, recently we had this problem of payment system not getting accepted. There was this blue screen bug from Microsoft, which stopped some flights and such.
Mhm.
Does security framework also consider the application security when they are uploading new piece of code? Does that, in software terms, does that also come under the security aspect, or those are
Yes,
more like
yes.
developmental?
Yeah, any IT updates that you do, we will see those things also. I have taken that as an example, IT update. So whenever you do any IT updates, you need to make sure, like, everything is still compliance. You need to
Okay. Okay.
penetration testing and other testing. And maybe some companies also follow 30 days protocol where they evaluate everything within 30 days. So we will see those things in our upcoming slides. Yeah, so the main thing is, if you see in this slide, I have shown you all major companies which somehow we all are using, right? And somehow, if you see, we might have stored our data information, means the credit card information in these companies. If we, at least I have stored some in some of them, and if a big data breach happens, everything will be on risk, right? So this actually tells us how it is important to manage security from management point of view. So management actually plays a very critical role to ensure, like, the everything goes smoothly in any organization. But okay, okay, but we will, in this slide, we will see what are the unique functions of information security management. So from organization point of view, if you see from the top, there will be two main bodies. First will be the IT group, which actually is responsible for ensuring effective and efficient business operations. So they are responsible to deal with hardware, software that actually we use in our day-to-day life in any organization. So they are related to this. On the other hand, we have information security group, which actually focus on how this information is being used in terms of CIA. So confidentiality, integrity, and availability. So we have seen what these terms are. So information security group wants to make sure this CIA should be ensured with the data as well as with the information system which are being used in an organization. And how they are going to do this? They are going to do this by managing the whole process. So the thing is, in information security management, it consists of 6 unique functions. And I have just listed these 6 unique functions. And most of them we will see in our upcoming lecture. So they are one chapters in this cybersecurity course. But today we will see an overview of what are different constituents, or what are the different 6 unique functions of information security management from management point of view. So the first thing is information security planning. So planning actually is very important, which involves the process of defining organization security goals, objectives, and strategies. So coming back to the same example that Ajay told, I have taken somewhat similar example here. If you see in this diagram, so once you have done, like, if a financial service company has done certain updates, for example, they have updated their database, and this IT updates has been done in the whole organization. So now because of these updates, their goals, objectives, and strategies are going to be changed. So the new goal would be to make sure that this new IT updates are secure, and still the system is cannot be compromised by cyber attacks, by cyber threats, or by the outsider people. Now, to make sure this security goals is achieved, means there needs to be planning needs to be done to formulate certain objectives. So one of the objectives could be to identify and remediate any security vulnerabilities, because now you have done an update, and this update can introduce new bugs. So you need to understand, or you need to identify, and you need to follow a process to remediate this particular bug in the whole system. To accomplish this objective, many strategies can be formulated, and one of the strategies could be we want to conduct some vulnerability assessment task, or maybe penetration testing, just to make sure this update is not causing any problems. Like in the example which I just gave, there was a problem over there. So I think this goal, objective, and strategies needs to be formulated whenever you do any updates, or whenever you are formulating an organization. So it depends, but we need to have planning. So planning is very important. So the purpose is it gives you a direction, means it gives a direction to the organization security efforts, which actually, as I told you in the last classes, so ultimately the security management should align with business goals. So we are helping as a security management policy, or as a planning, we are trying to help uh, organization to achieve its business goal. So this is the main task. So for this, planning is very much important, and I have listed some of the planning that actually exist in information security. For example, incident response planning, business continuity planning, and disaster recovery planning. So these three plannings are executed when a disaster or incident happens in an organization. So we will see these things in continuity thing. And next is policy planning, personal planning, technology rollout, risk management, security program planning, including education, training, and awareness. So there are different types of planning that in which are being followed in information security, just to make sure that the security efforts actually aligns with organizations' business goals. So this is the main task. Second is policy. So in information security management, the next P actually we can say is for policy, which is actually a formal document, and which actually outlines the organization rules, guidelines. For example, one rule or guideline can be of any organization could be you need to have a strong password. So policy is users or the people who are working in an organization must have strong password. So strong password is the policy of organization, right? So the purpose is it is going to provide you a clear framework for decision making and to enforce compliance in the whole framework, and it sets an expectations for employees and stakeholders, because now you must comply, because you are complying with this strong password. It means this ultimately is going to ensure like the security is maintained within the organization. And I have also taken one more example here, access control policy. So the organization can define one policy for access control is people or the users of the organization or the employers cannot access their systems just by passwords. They might need multi factor authentication, where some gest some I mean some gestures or some hand impressions are used apart from passwords, or maybe some passwords or some codes are being shared on your phone number, and this is how multi-factor authentication is being used. So policy actually gives you a clear framework. And if I talk about from information security point of view, these policies can be categorized into three types. First is enterprise information security policy, which actually tackles, or which actually tells you, which actually gives you policy for the whole organization. It is not relevant to one thing, but it is for the whole, and for the whole organization. Second is issues specific security policy, which is particular for a particular use of technology. For example, how you're going to use internet in your organization. You have your mobile device, which is given by your or a laptop which has been provided by your organization. But how you will use this technology? So these things actually are going to come under issue-specific security policy. The next one is system-specific policies, which actually tells you, for example, in an organization, we can have firewalls, we can have intrusion detection system, but how you are going to configure these firewalls when your mobile, like you are accessing some IP address, when those IP will be given or a notification will come to you by saying this IP is you cannot access this IP because it is spam or something else. So system-specific policies are related to technologies, how you are going to configure those technologies, I mean. But we will see these things in our upcoming chapters, which is policy. So we will go there in more detail. So policy is one of the main constituent of information management because it actually gives you an outline how the organization security will go on. The next is program. So security programs are also very, very important, and they are structured initiatives. So you might have heard about security education training awareness SETA program. So if you join any organization, this SETA is something which is being followed by most of the organization. They may give you some questions or some booklets, something to read based on which you need to give some online exams. So they just want to make sure you are aware with the organization security basic things, right? So so they are mandatory security training for all new employees. So for example, in LUT also they have this IT training where you need to give this once you join this LUT organization, you need to go through this mandatory security training, right? Yeah. So they have certain article that you need to read, some paragraphs based on which you need to answer those questions. So basically, programs in security management are a systematic approach to achieve security objectives and manage security resources efficiently. Like one of them is SETA. Second is vulnerability management is one of them. Security incident response program. So once the incident has happened, there should be a program which should tell you where you should go and to whom you should report if an incident actually has happened. So these all things comes under programs, and there are different initiatives that each organization takes uh, to run different types of programs. The next P is protection in information security management, which actually involves the actual implementation. So right now we talked about policy, we talked about planning, we talked about people, but about program, I mean. But now protection actually means the actual implementation. So you might deploy different firewalls, encryption techniques, access control policies to ensure the whole organization is protected, right? So so ultimately, protection measures prevent unauthorized access. It is going to reduce security risk, and by the end, CIA is going to be ensured on data as well as on the systems that are going to be used in an organization. So I have given here one example of access control policies. For example, if the organization has access control policy, they can implement role-based access control policy. There are multiple types of access control policy, but let's take one of the example, which is role-based. So in role-based CISO, the main guy, the chief information security officer is there, manager is there, and the basic user like us are there. So each users are going to have a different role, and based on this role they can access certain files. For example, CISO over here can actually see the log file, the security systems, and everything related to information security. On the other hand, manager can see its own team, how the team are actually going on, the data related to the people who are there in his teams, and the user can actually can access systems which involves his day-to-day thing. For example, I can access Moodle, I can access CISO, those basic things that are needed to perform my day-to-day tasks. So based on different roles you define different access control. So this is one of the type of protection that actually is being enforced in an organization. And the next is people. As I told you, people.
One question.
Yeah.
Before you proceed. Uh, you talked about role-based access, role-based access. I also don't know any other access protocol. You said there are others as well. Could you give an example, like anything which was earlier preferred and then they changed it to role-based, or is there anything which is still common access protocol?
I think role-based is the most common access control protocol that is being used in every organization since IT came actually. If you see the history, the role base is the most common, but then people are now integrating blockchain with this role based access control thing, because once you do identification, then you perform authentication, and then you authorize, and then you give you perform this access control. So people are now integrating blockchain with this role based access control. So you will see blockchain-based access control mechanism is one of them.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So
Hmm.
similarly, you will see there are many different access control policies. So we will see this
Yeah.
not in that detail, but yeah, we will see different types of access control in our upcoming slides, where we will
Okay.
talk about how these things actually works. Yes. So the next thing was people. So as I told you, like the people are the main asset of any organization, and it is the weakest point of security also. So we want to make sure, or whenever security management process is being run, they want to make sure the people are well trained. So they should know what to do when an incident happens and how to react to an incident in an organization. So basically, you want to make sure each people, despite of their role, they should be educated related to security from security aspects. I mean, so it is going to promote security conscious culture, and it will encourage individuals to recognize, report, and mitigate security threats, as I told you. So how we can achieve this? We can achieve this by performing security awareness training, by fostering a culture of security and ensuring that employees are aware of their roles and responsibilities in overall security management. So responsibility. So we saw in target case study. So this no one was there to take responsibility of the whole incident, why incident happened, and who was responsible. So so people are very much important here, because you want to make sure they are the one who are going to access all assets that you have in your organization. And the last P of security management function is projects. So basically, one example over here is you want to uh, so similar to what projects that we have in that we have, like for example, Horizon or Academic of Finland. So similarly, security projects are also there, which actually are specific initiatives and that aims to address security concerns. For example, the organization might wants to replace their old firewalls with the next generation firewalls, which just which do not only checks IP or protocol. It can also prevent the applications. It can also it also has IDS integrated with this firewall. So the next generation. So there can be certain projects based on which you want to ensure the effectiveness of the security in the whole organization, and this is one of them. Like you can run a project. One project could be to change overall firewalls in the whole organization. Yeah. So now I want to in the first class I talked about policy standards. So I just want to give you how they are linked with each other, and then we will see what are the different ways of managing security, right? Information security. So basically there are five aspects: policy, standards, guidelines, procedures, and practices. So policy we saw. So basically policies are very high level statements which actually will give you, or which which is going to define organizations' security goals and objective. So one policy could be like I have given here, could be employee must use strong passwords and passwords must be changed regularly. So it is going to tell you what needs to be done. So if you see policies, policy is telling you what needs to be done, but it will never tell you how it should be done. So when we go towards how, then we need standards. So basically, standard is a detailed statement which will tell you how we can comply with the policy. So for example, password must be 10 characters long. It should incorporate at least one lower uppercase and special character and so on things, right? So standard is a detailed statement which actually tells you how you can comply to a policy. And similarly, we have guidelines, which actually is an example or it is a recommendation that can be used to enforce that policy. For example, if you want to have a strong password, then you can there is a recommendation given by NIST, National Information Standards and Technology, yeah, 800-118, which gives you a guide to enterprise password management, how you can manage the whole password, I mean. So guidelines is basically a recommendation which actually is going to assist users to comply with the policies, means with the new policies. And then we have procedures. So procedures will give you step-by-step instructions how actually you can perform to comply with that policy. For example, to change policy, you need to log into your system, then you need to enter your old password, then you need to enter your new password, and your new password should be should have uppercase, lowercase, and all those. So set of instructions, I mean. So procedures are a set of instructions which will tell you how you can accomplish that particular policy. And finally, we have practices. So practices are something which are being used commonly by reputable organization. So for example, here I have mentioned US certification recommends the following: use a minimum password length of 15 characters for administration accounts. So this is the practices which reputable organization use, and and we need to follow those recommendations to ensure means we can follow, I mean, we can follow this best practices to ensure the security is actually enforced properly in a organization. So this is what, so policy will tell you what, and standard guidelines, procedures and practices will tell you how you can enforce your policy. Yeah. So now the main chapter has started. So the main thing that we talked initially was how actually we can manage cybersecurity, which was not there in target data breach case study, right? So basically, there are three different ways by which we can manage cybersecurity. One of them is governance, risk, compliance approach, GRC approach. Second is standards driven approach. And third is organizational planning approach. So we will see them one by one. But before going into governance, risk, compliance approach, what do you understand by governance? What is governance?
Governance is for governing some policies, some best practices or procedures to ensure security of other information or all the assets that are available in the organization.
Okay.
Management of an organization.
Management of the organization. Okay. Anything else? Anyone from online participant? What do you understand by governance?
Governance, basically, maybe the laws that should be incorporated in terms of uh, access and policy, who should access where, what kind of encryption mechanism the whole country will use in terms of, and what could be the cyber security policy of the government if we are talking about the whole area. But if we are talking about in terms of internal, just the organization, then in that sense it will be like the governance of rules and regulations that should get in when some breach happen, and also if what kind of encryption the organization will be using, and if they will be like, for example, in LUT we have certain uh, rules regarding our devices, and when we log into public places we have to connect to the VPN, virtual private network, and then only we can access the LUT network services. So these are mostly the governance policies based
Okay,
on,
so
is what I understand.
okay, yeah. So I think we are getting a little bit confused with governance and policy. So I think you might, or we might have heard about governing body. Have you heard this term, governing body, right? So every
Yeah.
organization has some governing bodies, right? And if you see these governing bodies, they sit on top of management. So there is management, like CISO and these people who actually are going to see day by day operations. And whether these people are, these executive peoples are doing their work or not, you have some governing body on top of it, right? They are the board members. You might have heard there is a board meeting in which the top people are going, right? And so this governance actually comes from there. So governing bodies. So we want to have a board member on top, which actually is going to see how the management is doing their task, and then management will see their people how day-to-day operations are being performed and done. So governance risk compliance approach actually integrates this governing body with risk, where actually you want to focus on identifying, assessing, and mitigating risk which could impact organizational's business goal, and compliance. So ultimately, each organization has to be compliant. They needs to follow certain rules, regulations wherever they are. For example, in Finland, we might have certain different laws, regulations, which can be specific to Finland and which will be specific for EU region, right? But it will not be, it may or it may not be compliant with our Asia Pacific region. So this GRC approach actually integrates this governing body with risk and with this laws, regulations, I mean. And in this approach, cybersecurity is not seen as a separate constituent. So this is very important. So every organization is going to have multiple types of risk, right? For example, they can have market risk, labor risk, uh, liquidity risk, and so on. There can be multiple types of risk organization can have. So cybersecurity in GRC approach is part of this risk. So there is no separate entity or there is no separate process in GRC approach. They see cybersecurity as a holistic, means as a whole part of all risks that an organization can have. Are you getting my point? What I'm trying to say? So this is what GRC is. So GRC is for big companies which don't see cybersecurity as a separate risk. They see cybersecurity as one of the risks which the organization has already, like market and all other risks that I have told you. But the idea is this GRC actually integrates, like I told you, this governing risk and compliance, and there are different ways, or there are different models by which this GRC is implemented, which we will see in our upcoming slide. So they follow certain internal control. So there are some new words which you are seeing right now, internal control. So I will let you know what these internal controls are in our next slides, and what are the different ways to implement GRC. We will also see that thing. But now you know what GRC is, right? We want to integrate these three things together to ensure cybersecurity is managed, but it is not a separate constituent. It is seen as a integrated constituent of risk. Second is standard-driven approach. So, for example, if I talk about some cement company, let's say cement, which manufactures cement, it is a very big company. So even though it is manufacturing cement, right, that there could be different cement companies. For example, if I talk about India, we have Madras Cement. It is a very big company there in South, Madras Cement. So Madras Cement, the main task is to manufacture or to produce cement, right? But still they have their own IT group, they have certain things which is controlled or done by IT, right? But how about an e-commerce website like Amazon, which uh, which uh, which which performs certain tasks, which gives you some products, you buy products, and which sells products you buy, and this is something which they perform. So do you think the assets that a cement company and an e-commerce company has is same or it is different? What do you think? The assets that a cement company is going to have and e-commerce website company is going to have, they are same or they are different?
They are very different, but in terms of IT, they will be same. Could be same.
In terms of digital assets, an e-commerce company would have more and a larger amount of e-commerce assets or digital assets.
Cyber assets.
Yeah. But for cement company, there's also going to be some sort of digital assets comparatively less than an e-commerce.
Yes. So you need to understand this GRC is very much suited for company like cement company. I'm giving you an example.
Cement companies are most of the time they are working business to business.
Yes, this is also true.
Always on teams are working business to customer directly, so there will be more like information stored, individual information is stored in the system.
Yes, but I was more focusing on assets. So if you see assets, so in cement company, the assets will be different. So their risk is going to be different, right? So when you have different types of risk, the GRC approach is very much suited for you. So you can go with GRC and we will see what models are there. So GRC is very much suited for a company like a cement company, which also has IT, but their ultimate goal is different, right? They're producing cement and they're doing this, but they are managing their people, and they are being used, they are using IT for accounting and so on things. But if I talk about e-commerce website like Amazon or Flipkart, so Amazon actually has all cyber assets means all their assets are mostly are cyber assets. I mean, for example, they might use IDS firewalls, how this card details are being performed or saved or stored, right? And so on. I mean, so for e-commerce website like Amazon, it is always best to go with standard-driven approach. They should not go with GRC approach. For them, standard-driven approach is best. And there are two main standards that are being used. One is NIST and the other is ISO IEC. So NIST is most commonly used in United States, and it is open access. You don't have to pay anything to read any NIST cybersecurity frameworks, like the previous that we saw, NIST for managing password. So that one. And for ISO, it is mostly used in Europe. It is actually European based standards, and it is mostly used in Europe and other parts of the world also. In India also we use ISO, right? It is very common in India that we use ISO, but for ISO you need to pay. So all standards that are there in ISO you need to pay. It is not open source; it is paid. And but the main thing is the third point that I have mentioned here. Cybersecurity is seen as a separate category and is distinct from other risks. So this is the main distinct or difference between a GRC and a standard-driven approach. So for e-commerce website, they will never go with GRC, but it depends how big or what things they do. But typically typically a e-commerce website, they will always go for standard-driven approach. So they want to make sure that each process that they are using in their e-commerce things, they are somehow compliant with some standards. How they are storing your credit card information, how they are processing your information, whether they have a backup for their means their items or articles that they are there on their e-commerce website. So they want to make sure, or how data is being accessed from there. So they want to make sure each and every process that they think is relevant for their business, they are going to be they are going to take this certification, I mean, from these standards. So cybersecurity in standard driven approach is seen as a separate category and is distinct from other risks. So there can be market risk and other risk, but cybersecurity here is a separate risk. But then again, it okay. We will go into that thing later. So open and proprietary. So what do you think? Open access is good, or if you have like if you pay something and if you use certain assets like software and other things, that one is good. Which one do you think is good for the market or for the organization or for the people?
Both of them are untapped, so I think equalize.
Okay, so and which one you think has more business opportunity, where like more business?
Common.
It depends on your goal. Okay.
I think in context of NIST and ISO, they both have bad reputation, so it shouldn't directly be a problem. But then as a consumer, sometimes we often think that paid standard would be better than an open source.
So yeah, so this is somewhat is right, but the thing is like if you see there, I don't know whether you have used this VLC player. Have you used VLC player? So VLC player is an open source software, right? So you can just download and you can just do and you can use that VLC player. But how about like this media player that you get in Windows? It only comes with Windows software, right? So you need to buy Windows and then you get. But why people are investing more in this paid software? Everyone is using Microsoft or let's say Apple or something else. So if you see from software context, I mean, people are paying and still they are using more the paid version compared to the open source. I don't think now people are using VLC player or other players in their systems. It was there previously for some decades, but still you will see the paid versions are very high. Why?
I mean, maybe with paid version, the companies that are charging us for the product are responsible for the security risks that are associated with the software. With open source, although it is ideally the case that they would ensure the security, but then if things go wrong, then the responsibility is totally going to be on the consumer. Also, since the software is open source, anyone can see the code and tamper with it or find bugs easily.
Yes, yes, somewhat. Yes, you're right, correct. But the main thing is service. So service is something that each consumer wants. So this big, yes. So this customer support. I mean, yeah. So service. So if you see this big people, Oracle, Microsoft, they are making products, but ultimately people are using their products because they give service. So if you cannot give service of your product, no one is going to use. So this is why you see, even though there are open source platform softwares are available, people still they want to pay and they want to use because they want service. They don't want to end up using something which they are not able to fix some errors while they are using it, right? So this is one thing. And the third approach is organizational planning approach, which actually we are going to see in our this whole course. So we will not go into GRC or standard driven approach. I will just give you an overview of these two approach. But in our from our textbook point of view, we generally follow the third approach, which is organizational planning approach, where cybersecurity, if you read your textbook, cybersecurity is seen as is a part of strategic planning. So strategic planning defines organization's vision and mission. So there we define cybersecurity from the governing body it comes, and also risk management. So and the second thing is contingency planning. We will also see how once the incident, even though you are even though you have done everything what you could have done to avoid risk, but still cyber threats or attacks are going to happen, and how you can what planning is actually needed uh, to manage those incidents, and how those incidents can become disaster for a company. We will see those things in contingency planning. So the third approach, organizational planning approach, is our textbook approach, which we will see in this course also. Yeah, but coming back to GRC approach, and I just want to give you an overview, because for these you can do certification. There are certification course in cybersecurity domain. you will see many people, even though they are from cybersecurity, but they are specialists in certain things. For example, this COBIT or the other GRC approaches that I have mentioned here, and ISO. You will see people write in their CV, they are certified this and this, ISO certified this. They have done a training. So our course is not about training, so we will not go into those things in that detail. But yeah, but we will discuss what GRC is. So why GRC came? So early 90s and 2000 actually. So there people were doing this accounting thing, means the big organization, they were doing accounting thing manually. So they were not using IT. So because they were not using IT, there was no governing body. Huge scandal happened in 90s and 2000s. You can read those scandals were based on accounting frauds, and the management body itself did those scandals. The whole company got bankrupt because the management was the main culprit in the whole scenario, because there was no governing body over there to see what the management people are doing with the company. So what happened? So IT was introduced after 2000 because of this whole scandals to prevent these frauds. IT came into picture, and as IT was used by almost every organization somehow. Like for example, at least to manage their accounting thing, they were using IT, right? Not maybe for everything, but for managing IT, they started using IT. And just to make sure this IT is compliant with the organization, this first COBIT was introduced by Information Systems Group. So COBIT actually stands for Control Objectives of Information Related Technology. If you see this word, it gives you the idea what it is. So it gives you control. It gives you the way how you are going to use IT in an organization. Once you have purchased an IT infrastructure, the hardware, software, whatever you want to use to deal with this accounting or for other stuff, whether this IT, the whole IT is compliant with the organization or not. So these things comes under COBIT, and COBIT was developed by Information Systems Audit and Control Association, ISACA. And the main idea to bring COBIT was to make sure the IT can be controlled, it can be audited, means regular audits can be performed, and because you have bring a new infrastructure in your organization, how you can manage this infrastructure. So this COBIT actually sees. We will see a little bit more detail about COBIT. The next GRC approach is COSO, which actually means Committee of Sponsoring Organization, which actually is for big enterprise organizations and very big organizations, and they work on some internal controls. So some internal controls means some processes, how actually you can control the internal functionality of organization. We will see this what internal control is. So basically, COSO is control-based approach, and it was proposed by American Accounting Association. And the third one is COSO ERM, where this risk management has been added. So in COSO we don't have risk management. Means once you know risk, how you are going to handle those risks. So this handling of risk actually was introduced in COSO ERM. So basically, COSO ERM expands COSO framework by taking risk-based approach. We will see these three one by one, but let's see first what is internal control that I talked about in COSO. So basically, internal controls are the processes which an organization is going to implement to assure that the following objectives are achieved. So you want to have certain processes. For example, one processes can be how you are going to assure like all assets that are being used in an organization are secured. Means processes to safeguard assets that are being used in an organization. Those assets can be hardware, software, anything which are used by IT. Processes for maintaining sufficient records. processes to provide accurate and reliable information, processes to prepare financial reports according to established criteria. Then you need then of course processes to promote and improve operational efficiency, processes to encourage, so on. So you can just read these slides. So the idea is, so when we say about controls, it talks about processes and how you're going to implement them, right? And ultimately, when you implement those processes, you want to achieve these things: laws and regulations. You want to safeguard your assets. You want to see how financial reports are being reported in the organization, whether everyone is adhering to the management policies or not. So you need to have certain processes, and these are internal controls that in every organization is going to have in COSO, right? But so when once you enforce this control, so why you are doing this? So basically, there are three aspects why we are actually implementing this internal controls, and we can divide this internal controls into three different aspects. Like in software maintenance, we have, for the first one is preventive control. The name suggests you want to deter problems from occurring. Then the second one is detective control. Discover problems that are not prevented, even though you have done whatever you could have done to solve the problem, but the problem is going to come, the risk is going to come. Now you want to discover, and that was not prevented. And finally, it is corrective. Now you want to identify and correct those problems, and you want to recover. So these are the three aspects of internal control that is being used in COSO. So the latest version of COBIT framework that is being used is COBIT 5. You can read about this about COBIT 5 in your textbook also, which is basically based on these principles, like meeting stakeholders' needs, covering the enterprise end to end, applying a single integrated framework, enabling a holistic approach, and separating governance from management. So the last point is very important. It separates governing body from management. So this is what I was telling you. So in GRC, this is the main thing, and COBIT actually does this thing. And we will see in this diagram, if you see. So you have business needs on top, and then we have governance, and then we also have management. So there are two different entities in an organization. So the idea or the main goal of governance is they are going to tell you how and what and how to use, let's say, IT services, and they will direct you based on the feedback that they are going to collect from management. They are going to evaluate whether the management is doing what they were asked to do. And they will also monitor the tasks that have been allocated to the management. Is it being going smoothly or not? So the three main tasks is being performed by governance. They will direct, they will evaluate, and they will monitor the management. And what management is going to do? Management will plan how they are going to use this IT services. Let's say they are going to build, if they need to procure new IT services, it can be hardware or devices, hardware or software. They are going to make a plan for this. They are going to build, and then they are going to run this thing, this whole IT services, and they are going to monitor whether they are getting their desired output or not. So IT services over here is responsible, or it is being used to achieve business goal, right? So finally, they are going to monitor. So if you see this diagram, based on the business needs, governing body and management, they have been separated, and their task is also separated from each other. So it's not mixed up. So you will not face the same problem that we faced in target case study. So this is how COBIT 5 actually works. And the next one is COSO that we saw in GRC approach. So I talked about COSO and COSO ERM. So both COSO and COSO ERM works on internal controls that I told you. And the only difference between COSO and COSO ERM is the three things that I have highlighted in red color. Objective setting. Now you have internal environment. So you need to set certain objectives, what you want to achieve, right? And then event identification, like you now, like event identification is like different event or different processes that are going to happen related to risk, and based on which you want to assess the risk, and then you want to respond. So the main difference between COSO and COSO ERM is, if you see, is the risk response. So risk response was not there, even though risk assessment is there, means you need to identify and you want to prioritize those risks. But but in COSO ERM you want to respond also to those risks. So this is the main thing, and you can read this thing in your textbook, as I told you. Yeah. So this was JRC, and the second one is standard driven that I told you. So for cybersecurity management, the second approach is standard driven approach, and this is one of the main widely used standards in information security, which is Code of Practice for Information Security Management, which was originally published by British Standard BS 7799, and now it has been taken by ISO IEC, which is 17799 2005. So the main idea of this standard is to establish guidelines and general principles for initiating, implementing, maintaining, and improving information security management in an organization. So I will give you some examples of this ISOs also. So basically, as I told you, so organization like e-commerce, they want to have standard driven cybersecurity management. So they can go with this ISO 27000 series. So basically, this series has 133 possible controls, which are related to uh, different hardware, software, and security related things. So if you see these controls, I can show you here. So these are the some published standards. They are not open access, but you can always read some of them. You can read from some by paying, I mean. So if you see this thing, if this published standards. So in this standards, we can take one example, ISO IEC 27019, which is on 19th position. It tells you information security for process control in energy industry. So you have separate standards that you want to follow in an organization, which can be taken from this published standard from ISO, so that you can say we are compliant, or our organization is complied with or has some certification from, we have taken some certification from this governing bodies. Yeah, so these are also some ISO 27000 series. So I will not go into details what these things are. You can just read it. But some questions I will frame in your assignments, so that you can read these standards. Yeah, but yeah, of course, there is also politics. For example, even though ISO is, as I told you, is being used in Europe, still countries like Germany is a European country which actually has not adopted this model, and they say there is some fundamental flaws, because the first flaws that we discuss is open source, and that one, whether it should be paid. So they think open means it is not being used by everyone. So this negativity actually comes when you are paying and when you are using. Yeah. So, but US, Germany, and Japan, they have not adopted this ISO, and these are some claims that they say, or justification that they give you why they have been not used. And the second one is NIST security models. So in standard driven, the second one is National Information Standards and Technology Security Models, which actually is open source, as I told you, and it gives you a certain handbooks which you can read, SP 812, 814, and so on. So these are different security models which actually are needed for organization if they want to comply, or if they want to ensure security management in the organization. Yes, and as I told you, this actually offers an approach for managing policies, and they are open source, so they are living document that constantly change and grow. And so this is 818 that we are discussing here, Guide for Developing Security Plans. So this document must be properly disseminated and managed. Good management practices for policy development and maintenance make for a more resilient organization, and so on. Yeah. Yes. So the main thing was, if I recap what we have seen here is, so cybersecurity management can be done in 3 ways. So this is the main thing. One is GRC, one is standard-driven approach, and the third one was the textbook approach, where risk management and contingency planning is seen as a strategic planning. Means you don't see them as you don't see as them as an organizational risk, but you plan for them from top. From top, I mean, it should be the strategic vision of the organization, and that is what we are going to see in our upcoming classes. Yes. So if you have